scripts can be edited and re-edited indefinitely. When should a screenwriter hand it over and just go, you know what, it's finished? How do we know it's finished and it's ready?
I think that it happens in stages. I mean, I think that there is a point after you've written it and you kind of gotten everything down on the page and let it, if you can let it sit a little while and go back to it. I think that's probably one of the hardest things for a writer to do, is kind of just let it sit. But really, when you can let your writing sit and you go back to it, even if it's only like a couple of weeks, if you can let it sit for 2 weeks and you read it back, you'll have so much, reading it back the day after you finished is such a different experience than 2 weeks later. It's become so much clearer the more distance you have. So if you can allow yourself that, and then you go back to it and you'll see what is and isn't working, broad strokes, like, oh, did I say what I wanted to say with this? How close am I? And I think when you get to a point where you feel close, like at least, it's not perfect, but it's close, then I think the ideal thing is to have someone you trust read it. And that doesn't have to, that can just be if you have a writer friend read it, who, it doesn't matter who it is, but somebody you trust who's going to, is going to be honest with you and kind, but honest, and kind of get some feedback that way. And see, not so much about the feedback isn't about them telling you, what didn't work, but the feedback is telling you what did they think the story was, what did they get out of the story. And so from that feedback, you kind of you'll know, have I, did I accomplish what I set out to accomplish? Am I getting the reaction I hope to? And then you can kind of decide. But it is, these are living organisms, and, you're constantly learning. So even a script that's been sitting, that's been in and out of the drawer for 6 years, you might end up still rewriting, because if you've learned something new about the character, you've learned something new. So I say that it's never going to feel 100% ready, but if it's close and you feel good about it and you're getting good feedback from people you trust, then I would say it's worth allowing a few other people to read it. Maybe your agent, maybe, someone in the industry, and getting 1 or 2 bits more feedback, and then seeing, okay, should I be adjusting it anymore? And there may be notes that you don't agree with and you ignore those and you just keep going until you find people, till you've heard, unless you've heard that note 10 times, then you kind of go, that was one person's opinion. So my process when I work with writers is I like to, even for myself as someone who works with writers, because I read their scripts so many times, I have close friends who also do what I do, and we exchange scripts, and we'll say, this is my client's script, will you read this and I'll read theirs, because we're at a point where we can't see it quite as clearly. So, and we'll go, oh, this is what I thought. And so you kind of need a little network of people you trust. And that can be people you pay, or it could be a writer's group, or it could be, friends from FilmarketTalks Hub, or whatever the groups that you're involved with, so that that you have a safe place to get feedback. And just getting a little, that the more feedback you get, the more clarity. And it may be that the feedback just informs you that, hey, I'm perfectly on the right track. Great when that happens, or it might be one little thing. So I would say it's not about diving in. It's about put your toe in, put your foot in, walk in a little bit, Some people would disagree. They'd say dive right in. But my experience is, I think it's a delicate process, and I like to take it one step at a time.
No, that's fantastic advice. And along the same lines, at which stage should a screenwriter, if they should at all, work with a script editor? Would you say it's when they've had feedback that they've got a bit stuck, or at what point would you advise working with a script editor?
Well, I think, again, it's like so much of it is just such a personal process. I mean, I have clients that I work with from the moment they have their concept of their idea, and we just start talking about that idea, and then it builds from there. And then, I kind of work with them until it's done, hopefully, even when it's being filmed, but that doesn't always happen. But then there are other people that really need that like absolute silence to get the story clear in their head, and they'll come to me once they've got a first draft, or they'll come to me fifth draft when they just kind of go, okay, I think it's done, and so it's a really, really personal experience. And I think you have to, I think there is something, I would say you shouldn't be sending it out to a lot of people. I think it's really important to have some of that quiet space. And so if I'm working with a client too, and they say, oh, I'm going to send it to so-and-so and so-and-so, and I'll just say, you know what, it's too soon. Like, hear what you think first. Let yourself have that time. So, it really is a personal thing, but my feeling is trusting your own instincts first, getting someone else that you trust next, and then kind of working your way into more. But at any point you can work with the editor or a mentor or, development producers. It really, really is personal choice.
And when someone's looking for a script analysis service, and there's so many out there, what would you recommend?
Even more this year, there's been like a tidal wave of people coming into the industry doing script development type stuff, and more. I'm getting more calls now than I ever have. Like, I'm probably getting 3 to 5 calls a week about people who want to be developing.
Wow.
So it's gone crazy.
Great for you. It's wonderful. I know it's wonderful. It's a good sign that people are developing, and that's really.
They're caring about the storytelling. Yay!
Absolutely. But what, for someone looking to work with a script developer or an editor or a consultant, what advice would you give when they're looking for service? It's a really good service.
Well, I do have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about this one thing, and that is that I want to always know who's giving me notes. I feel the services where you don't know who it is, that really doesn't work for me. But that said, I do have some clients who have gone to some of those services and had some good notes. So, that's not to say they're not good. It's just that for me personally, I want to know in what context I'm getting a note from. I want to know, perhaps it's someone who has completely different tastes than myself. You may not necessarily know that, but at least if you have a sense of who they are, whether it's just a bio or something, the idea of it being, Oz and he's behind a curtain and there's no way to know who it is. I don't go for that. Mm-hmm. And I would never want to do that. And you have to do that when you send it to an agent. You have to do that when when you're looking for an agent. You have to do that if you're in a competition. But even like with Film Market Hub, they know who's judges, right? But a lot of these you don't know. And it feels to me like, since there's so much time that you're out of that control, you have the power to be in control when you're hiring someone, to know who it is. Yeah. And I say keep that control. Know who it is. That's my feeling about it.
Fantastic advice. And when you're working with the writers you work with, do they tend to be one-off projects, or do you often kind of mentor a writer, along a journey? How do you work in your practice?
I do both. I have fewer and fewer one-off clients because I've been actually working a lot more with production companies in the last couple of years. I kind of have gone, I went through a phase where I was working a lot with just new writers, and now I've been, I like to explore different possibilities. I'm always kind of shifting around, but at any time I will do one-off assessments. I will work with writers on one project. I will work with writers on portfolios. I have writers I've worked with for years that, they may go away for 2 years and they come back with a new idea, and then we pick it up where we left off. So it's a real kind of as needed basis. And simultaneously, I'm working with production companies trying to get some of these writers' material into those companies. If I can make a match, I love to do that. Hopefully stay on the project as long as I can. And it's not just about writing. You also want to have your stories made. So that's part of it. Is it can be really sad for a script editor to constantly say goodbye when the script's gone. It's nice to be producing and be able to see it kind of flourish and go beyond that. So I'm at that stage now, but I love working with writers on multiple things when there's a really good connection with the writer. It's just natural to kind of want to help with whatever projects they're doing, if it serves them. But it's case by case. I don't feel like there are rules about these things. It's sort of like when it works, you go for it, and when it's not right, you just kind of hope for the next time.